Hello and welcome to today's Daf Yomi installment, Daf 22 of Arikhin, the Talmud Bavli using the Steinsaltz edition. Let's dive straight in. With regard to the duration for the proclamation the sages taught, one proclaims that the appraisal of the property inhabited by the minor orphan for 30 days. Shum hayasomim shaloshim yom chudu. If a creditor comes to collect the debt from orphans, or a woman claims her marriage contract, the court appraises the property and proclaims its sale for 30 consecutive days, day and night, or on Mondays and Thursdays over the course of 6 days. That's from the Rambam, Sefer Mishpatim, this week's Sefer Mishpatim. Hilchot Malva Velova 12:8, Shulchan Aruch Mishpat 9:1, and the Even Ezra 104:1. And one proclaims the appraisal of consecrated property for 60 days. The difference in elected proclamation for orphans and for consecrated property is due to the concern that in the case of orphans, a potential buyer might retract his offer. It is therefore in the orphan's own interest to have a shorter proclamation period to lower the chances of a retraction. By contrast, an offer to purchase consecrated property is a binding commitment that may not be retracted, provided that no higher offer was suggested by another potential buyer. In accordance with the principle, a declaration of God's equivalent to a transfer to a common person. Consequently, the temple treasury does not stand to lose from a lengthy period of proclamation. And that's from Jerusalem Talmud, Ketubot 11:6. This is a statement of Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says, one proclaims the appraisal of property for 60 days, and one proclaims the appraisal of consecrated property for 90 days. And the rabbis say both this and that and proclaim for 60 days. Rav Hista said that Avimi, who's Avimi? Avimi was the first and second generation Babylonian Amorah. He was mentioned was a first and second generation Babylonian Amorah. He was mentioned in the Gemara as debating halacha on the sages who studied from or taught in Pali. Avimi was Rav Chisa's teacher, and Avimi rated his students so highly that when Avimi forgot some of his studies, Chisa helped him recall them. See Menachos 7a says, the halacha is that one proclaims the appraisal of the property of orphans for 60 days. The Gemara of Arakhin Daf was sitting and saying this halacha stated by Rav Hista in the name of Avimi. Rav Naman bar Yitzchak said to Rav Chia bar Avin, did you say the proclamation is for 60 days, or did you say that it's for 30 days? Rav Chia bar Avin said to him, it's for 60 days. Rav Naman bar Yitzchak continued, is this the halacha with regard to the property of orphans, or with regard to consecrated property? Rav Chia bar Avin said to him, it applies to the property of orphans. Rav Naman bar Yitzchak persisted, do you rule according to the opinion of Rabbi Meir, or according to the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda? Rav Chia bar Avin said to him, I rule according to the opinion of Rabbi Meir. Rav Naman bar Yitzchak raised a difficulty. Rabbi Meir says that the appraisal of the property of orphans is proclaimed for 60 days. Rabbi Chia bar Avin said to him, and the Rav Chia said like this, I absorbed many blows. Kulfi. What's the kulfi? Kulfi blows, apparently related to the Persian word kupal, meaning a club. The Gaonim described it as a stick, one side of which was thick, into which one would place nails or other protruding objects. From Avimi, due to that halacha, Avimi would disparage me when I questioned his statement that according to Rabbi Meir, one proclaimed the appraisal of the property of orphans for 60 days, which is contracted by the Breita. Rav Avimi explained to Rav Chisa that if the court comes to proclaim the sale on consecutive days, then it's proclaimed for 30 days in accordance with the Breita. But if it's proclaimed on a Monday or on a Thursday when the markets are open, villages gather in the city and the court sits and in judgment, then it's proclaimed over the course of 60 days. According to Rashi, the same halacha applies to the property of orphans and consecrated property. If one proclaims the appraisal on consecutive days, he does so for 30 days. If he proclaimed it on a Monday and Thursday, he proclaimed it over the course of 60 days. See Rabbi Betzalel Ronsberg. Others rule that the appraisal of consecrated property is proclaimed for 60 days. Rambam Sefer Fla Hilchos Arikhin 4:27. The commentators disagree as to whether the appraisal of consecrated property must be proclaimed for 60 consecutive days. The case of Mishnah Hilchot Arikhin 3:19, or if it proclaimed for a corresponding number of days on Mondays and Thursdays to fast emes. And even though if master counts the number of days on which there is an actual proclamation, there is only 18 days, far fewer than 30 of the consecutive days. Since the matter extends over the course of 6 days, people will hear about the sale. Rav Yehuda says that Rav Asi says The court attends to the property of minor orphans to sell it in order to pay a debt only if ein nizkakein v'nichsei yisomim ela im. One may not collect from minor orphans the payment of a debt owed by their father, even if the creditor must wait until they reach majority. Rather the creditor must wait until they reach majority. This is true in all cases except when the father owed money to a Gentile creditor who collected interest and who agreed to adjudicate his claims according to Jewish law, but did not agree to loan without charging interest. The moral right is if the court sees that the minor orphans stand to benefit from repaying the loan before they reach majority, e.g. if the creditor offers to forgive part of the debt in exchange for immediate payment, the court may collect payment from them, see the response of the Ran 31. Similarly, if a woman claims a marriage contract from the orphans, whether she's a widow or divorcee, the court attends to the property inherited by the orphans and installs a steward act on their behalf, out of consideration for a woman so that she may remarry. This ruling is in accordance with a Meimah citation of the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan Rambam Sefer Mishpatim Hilchah Malav Over 12.3 Shulchan Aruch Chosh Mishpat 110.1. The debt was accruing interest that consumes the property of the orphans, since if they delay payment of the debt, it will grow dramatically. In other cases, the court delays payment until the orphans reach majority. And Rabbi Yochanan says the court attends to their property either to pay that according to a promissory note that contains interest, or to pay a wife's marriage contract, due to the standing obligation of the orphans to provide sustenance for the father's widow from his estate as long as she has not received payment of a marriage contract. It is therefore beneficial to the orphans that she should collect the marriage contract immediately. The Gemara asks, and Rashi, what is the reason that he did not state that the court attends to their property for the purpose of paying the marriage contract of a wife? The Gemara responds, there is no financial loss to the orphan in such a case, because the sage established that for the late husband, that as long as she receives sustenance from his estate, the orphans are entitled to her earnings. The Gemara asks, and the other Rabbi Yochanan, in light of this fact, that why does he rule that the court attends to their property? The Gemara responds, sometimes her earnings do not provide enough to reimburse the money spent on her sustenance. The Gemara continues, we learn in the Mishnah that one proclaimed the appraisal of the property inherited by orphans for 30 days and the appraisal of consecrated property for 60 days. And one proclaims it in the morning and in the evening. The Gemara asks, what case are we dealing with in the Mishnah? If we say that we are dealing with a Gentile creditor, will he comply with the ruling of the Jewish court that payment will be delayed for 30 days? Rather, it is obvious that we are dealing with a Jewish creditor. Now, if the Mishnah is dealing with a situation where the interest consumed of an orphan's property, do we leave a Jew to collect interest? But rather, it must be referring to a case where the interest does not consume the orphan's property, and nevertheless the Mishnah teaches that the court attends to the property of orphans even when no interest accrues on the loan. This apparently contradicts the opinion of Rav Ashi and Rabbi Yochanan. Well, according to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, the Mishnah is not difficult, as he can establish it as referring to payment of the marriage contract of a wife. But according to the opinion of Rav Ashi, that the court does not attend to the property of orphans in such a case, this Mishnah poses difficult. The Gemara responds, and Rashi could say to you, and according to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, does it work out well that the Mishnah requires 30 days of proclamation before the sale of the property? Do we leave aside the sustenance that the orphans certainly lose to the wife for the duration of 30 days and implement the proclamation, with regard to which we do not know if they will gain from it or if they will not gain? It is uncertain and often matching the appraisal of the court will be made. The Gemara rejects this argument that it is not difficult, as Rabbi Yochanan can explain that the Mishnah is referring to a widow who claims a marriage contract in court. But Tovas Kesubosa Bevestin, a widow receives sustenance from the property inherited by the orphans as long as she has not yet received payment of her marriage contract. Once she claims a payment in court, she no longer received that sustenance. Rambam Sefer Nashim Hilchot Yishud 81 Shulchan Aruch Ibn Ezer 93.3, and this is in accordance with a ruling that Rabbi Yehuda says that Shmuel says. As Rabbi Yehuda says that Shmuel says, a widow who claims payment of a marriage contract in court no longer receives sustenance from the estate of her husband. The Gemara asks, if so, then she should not attend to her request to collect payment of a marriage contract at all. Rather, the court should delay payment until the orphans reach majority, as it can no loss by delaying the payment. The Gemara rejects this suggestion. That is not appropriate. Rather, since we attend to her initially when she claims the payment of a marriage contract in court, we attend to her in the end as well in order to collect payment from the orphans. Despite the fact that the orphans will not lose money if they do not pay immediately. The Gemara returns to its initial question. In any case, the Mishnah poses a difficulty for the opinion of Ravasi, who maintains that the court attends to the property of orphans only in order to collect the payment of a loan that accrues interest, not for the payment of a marriage contract. The Mishnah is dealing with a Gentile creditor. He will not wait 30 days to collect payment, and if it is referring to a Jewish collector, he is prohibited from charging interest in the first place. The Gemara responds, actually the Mishnah is referring to a Gentile creditor in the specific case of one who accepted upon himself to adjudicate in accordance with Jewish law. He never agreed to delay collection for 30 days. The Gemara asks, if so, let him also not take interest, and it is prohibited to do so according to Jewish law. The Gemara responds, the Mishnah dealing with a case where he accepted Jewish law upon himself for this matter to delay collection for 30 days, but he did not accept upon himself for that matter not to collect interest. The Gemara suggests, coming to difficulty for the opinions of Rav Ashi and Rav Yochanan from a Mishnah and get into 48b, a court can collect for the debt from the property of orphans only from land of the lowest quality. One who comes to collect payment from orphans may collect only from inferior quality property, whether the orphans are minors or have reached majority. Rambam Sefer Mishpat Mechilchon Malva Valova 19:1 Shulchan Aruch Mishpat 108:18 419:3. The Gemara asks, what are we dealing with in this Mishnah? If we say the Mishnah is referring to a Gentile creditor, will he comply and accept inferior quality land as payment? Well, it's obvious that we're in the Jewish creditor. Now, if the Mishnah is referring to a case where interest consumes the orphan's property, do we leave him to collect interest? Well, they must be dealing with a case where the interest does not consume the orphan's property, and yet it is taught in the Mishnah that the court attends to the property of orphans even when no interest accrues on the loan. Once again, the Gemara states, granted, the Mishnah is not difficult according to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, as he can establish it as referring to payment of a marriage contract of a wife. But according to the opinion of Rav Ashi, that the court does not attend to the property of orphans in such a case, the Mishnah poses a difficulty. The Gemara responds that Rav Ashi could say to you, and according to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, does the Mishnah work out well? If the Mishnah is referring to a payment of a wife's marriage contract, why does it discuss specifically collecting from orphans? Even in the case of a divorced woman who collects payment from the husband himself, she also receives only inferior quality land. The Gemara answers this is not difficult, as Rabbi Yochanan would reply that the Mishnah is according to the opinion of Rabbi Meir, who says the marriage contract of a wife is generally paid with intermediate quality land, and if payment is collected from orphans, the marriage contract is paid with inferior quality land. So the footnote here, when one pays a debt with land rather than with money, differences and gradations of land quality must be taken into consideration, although in any event the land will have to be worth the cash sum in question, and therefore the lower the quality of the land, the more of it will be necessary to make up the sum. The court still assumes that people prefer to receive smaller quantity of high quality land, and such properties require less maintenance. The Torah says explicitly that injured parties receive their damages from superior quality land of the best of his own field, and of the best of his own vineyard shall he make restitution. Exodus 22:4. By Torah law, creditors receive their payment from inferior quality land. But the sages decreed that a creditor collects from intermediate quality land in order to maintain the incentive to lend. Interesting. The Gemara asks, in any case, the Mishnah poses a difficulty for the opinion of Rav Ashi. The Gemara responds, actually the Mishnah is referring to a Gentile creditor who upon himself to adjudicate in accordance with Jewish law. He therefore agreed to accept payment from inferior quality land. The Gemara asks, if so, let him also not take interest to be able to do according to Jewish law. The Gemara responds, the Mishnah is dealing with a case where he accepted Jewish law upon himself for this matter, they collect from 30 days, but he did not accept upon himself for that matter, not to collect interest. The court therefore attends to the property of the orphans in order to minimize the interest owed to the creditor. The Gemara further suggests, come and have a difficulty from a biter. When one proclaims the appraisal of the property of orphans, he announces that the property is being sold in order to give the proceeds to a wife as payment of a marriage contract, or in order to give a creditor payment of his debt. The Gemara explains, granted, there is no difficulty in the ruling that one proclaims the property is being sold in order to give a creditor payment of a debt, as whether according to this sage or whether according to that sage, Rav Ashi or Rabbi Yochanan, the Mishnah is according with that which we taught above. that it is dealing with a Gentile creditor who collects interest but agrees to delay payment. But with regard to the proclamation that the property is being sold in order to pay the wife's marriage contract, granted according to the opinion of Rabbi Yochanan, maintains that the court attends to the property of orphans in such a case, the vice works that well. But according to the opinion of Arakhin, that the court does not attend to their property in order to pay marriage contract, the bride opposes their difficulty. The Gemara responds, here we are in a case where one is obligated to pay, admits that he has not yet paid, i.e. the father admitted before his death that he has not yet paid the obligation stated in the marriage contract. The Gemara notes, now that you have arrived at this response, it is no longer necessary to establish that the previous cases are referring to a Gentile creditor. Rather, all of them are dealing with Jewish creditors, as they are referring to situations where one is obligated to pay admits that he has not yet paid. The Gemara's response is in accordance with the explanation of Rav Huna, son of Rav Yeshua, stated later on that debts are collected from the property of minor orphans due to concern that the father might have repaid the debt before his death, either with money or collateral, but he did not manage to retrieve the promissory note from the creditor before he passed away. Accordingly, if the father admits before his death that he is obligated to repay the loan or collect payment from the property of the orphans even on behalf of a creditor. The Mechubesed citing the Rosh of Rabbeinu Gershom Mo Hagola. He is not yet paid. In such a case, the court delays payment from the property of the orphans without delay. With regard to the dispute between Rashi and Rabbi Yochanan, the Gemara relates that Meimar collected the payment of a marriage contract for a divorced woman from the property of minor orphans. Ravina said to Meimar, but doesn't Rabbi Yehuda say that Rashi says that the court does not attend to the property of minor orphans unless interest was consuming it? And Rabbi Yochanan says that the court attends to their property either to pay a debt recorded in a promissory note that contains interest or to pay a wife's marriage contract due to the obligation of the orphans to provide her sustenance. Ravina added, and even Rabbi Yochanan says that they attend to the property of minor orphans only in the case of a widow, when she causes loss of their property due to the sustenance she receives until she collects payment of a marriage contract. But in the case of a divorced woman who does not receive sustenance from their property, Rabbi Yochanan agrees that the court does not collect payment of a marriage contract until the orphans reach majority. And Meimar said to Ravina, we learned that the statement of Ravina, and Meimar said to Ravina, we learn that the statement of Rabbi Yochanan that the court attends to the property of minor orphans in order to collect the payment of a marriage contract is for the sake of favor. Mishum China. Some commentaries explain, in order that she will find favor in the eyes of men, so that they want to marry her, knowing that she's already received payment of a marriage contract. Citing Rabbeinu Hanana Riv on the Ketubot 58b. In the Rambam's commentary on the Mishnah, it states that Hina is derived from Hanina, consideration, i.e. the court is considered to the plight of the wife just as is considered to minor orphan. According to the Rambam, if she remarried before receiving payment of a marriage contract, the court does not allow her to collect payment for minor orphans. Sefer Mishpatim Hilchot Malva Velova 12.3. Other commentaries explain this phrase in a more general fashion. The court attends to her in order that men find favor in the eyes of women, as women will see that they do not leave a marriage empty-handed, and therefore they will agree to marry, as Rashi. Alternatively, the favor is that there will be peace between husband and wife when she is aware that should she become divorced, she will receive payment of a marriage contract even for minor orphans. Rabbeinu Gershom Mo Hagola and the Arakhin. I.e. the court collects payment of a wife's marriage contract not due to the sustenance that consumes the property of the orphans, but in order that the wife will find favor in the eyes of men, so that they will marry her. The reason is equally applicable in the case of a widow and a divorced woman. With regard to attending the property of orphans, Naaman says, at first I will not attend to the property of orphans in order to collect payment of a standard debt. Once I heard that which Rav Huna, our friend, said the name of Rav, orphans who consume that which is not theirs, let them follow their deceased parent to the graveyard. From that point forward, I will attend to their property. The Gemara asks, at the outset, what is the reason that Rav Naaman would not collect payment for minor orphans? Rav Papa says the repayment of a creditor is a mitzvah. In other words, there is no lien on the property of a debtor by Torah law. Rather, it's a mitzvah for one to repay a debt. Since minor orphans are not obligated in the performance of mitzvot, they do not have to pay. In Although in general the sages place a lien on the property of a debtor, they do not do so with regard to the property of minor orphans. According to Rav Huna, son of Rav Yeshua, a lien applies to the property of a debtor by Torah law, or at least by rabbinic law. Accordingly, there is no reason to exclude the property of minor orphans from this halacha, other than the possibility that the father already paid the debt. See the Rambam, Rabbeinu Yonah, Bava Batra, 104a, and minor orphans are not obligated to perform that mitzvah. Rav son of Rav Yeshua, said the reason is that we say that there is a concern that the father might have transferred bundles of coins to the creditor before his death as collateral, and we are unaware of such a payment. Therefore, the court delays payment until the orphans reach majority in order to allow them time to clarify whether such payment was in fact made. The Gemara asks, what is the practical difference between these two explanations? The Gemara responds, there is a practical difference between them in a case where the one who is obligated to pay admits. One does not collect the payment of a loan for minor orphans, even if the loan was a promissory note, except in the following three instances. If one is obligated to pay, admits before his death that he did not pay his loan to the creditor, if he was excommunicated in order to compel him to pay and he died while under excommunication, or if it was initially stipulated that the loan will be repaid after a predetermined time, and that time had not arrived before his death, in which case there is no concern that he might already have paid the loan. Rambam Sefer Mishpatim, Hilchot Malva Valova, 11.6, Shulchan Aruch 108.3. That he still owes the money, or in a case where the court excommunicates the father not to force him to pay and he died in a state of excommunication, in such instances there is no doubt that the debt must be paid. According to Rav Papa, even in such cases the court does not collect payment from minor orphans, as they are not obligated in the performance of the mitzvah, whereas Rav Huna would rule that the court collects payment even before they reach majority, as there is no doubt that the debt is unpaid. The Gemara relates that they sent from the Eretz Yisrael a communication that in all of these cases cited above, in which the court collects payment of a debt from the property of minor orphans, and in a situation where the court excommunicated the father and he died while under excommunication. And the halacha is in accordance with the opinion of Rav Huna, son of Rav Yeshua. The Gemara attempts to determine the correct reason why the court does not attend to the property of minor orphans. We learn in the Mishnah that one proclaims the appraisal of the property of minor orphans that is being sold before 30 days, and proclaims the appraisal of consecrated property for 60 days. The one proclaims in the morning and the evening. The Gemara asks, what are we dealing with here? If we see the Mishnah dealing with a Gentile creditor who is unwilling to wait until the orphans reach majority, will he comply with the court's directive that the appraisal of the property he proclaimed for 30 days before it is sold? Well, it's obvious that the Mishnah dealing with a Jewish creditor. The Gemara concludes its proof. Granted, according to the opinion of Rav Huna, son of Rav Yeshua, who says that the court does not attend to the property of minor orphans due to a concern that their father might have left bundles of coins with the creditor, he can establish the Mishnah as referring to a case where one is obligated to pay, i.e. the father admits before his death and he is not paid. In such a case, the court does not wait to collect payment until the orphans reach majority. But according to the opinion of Papa, and the court does not attend to the property of minor orphans because they are not obligated in the midst to repay a loan, the Mishnah poses a difficulty. The Gemara explains that Rav Papa could say to you, if you wish, say that the Mishnah is referring to a case where the court sells the property of the orphans in order to collect payment for a marriage contract, which the court does for the sake of favour, i.e. in order that the wife will own property and be desirable for marriage. And if you wish, say instead the Mishnah dealing with the Gentile creditor who accepts it upon himself to adjudicate in accordance with Jewish law, he therefore agrees to delay collection for 30 days. The Gemara objects, if he accepts the Jewish law upon himself, then let him wait for the orphan until they reach majority before demanding payment of the loan. The Gemara explains the Mishnah is referring to a case where he accepted the Jewish law upon himself for this matter to delay collection for 30 days, but he did not accept it upon himself for that matter to wait until they reach majority. The Gemara suggests, come and hear a proof from a Brisa. When one proclaims the appraisal of the property of orphans, he announces that the property is being sold in order to give proceeds to a wife as payment of a marriage contract, or in order to give a creditor payment of his debt. The Gemara asks, what are we dealing with in the Brisa? If we see the Brisa is referring to a Gentile creditor who is unwilling to wait until the orphans reach majority, will he comply with the court's directive that the appraisal of the property is proclaimed for 30 days before it is sold? Well, it's obvious that the Mishnah is dealing with a Jewish creditor. The Gemara continues, granted, according to the opinion of Rav Huna, son of Rav Yeshua, he can establish the Mishnah as referring to a case where one is obligated to pay admits before his death that he has not paid, but according to the opinion of our Papa, granted, the court collects payment of a marriage contract for the sake of favour, but the fact that they sell the property in order to pay a creditor poses a difficulty. Gemara responds, actually the Bais is dealing with a Gentile creditor, and this is referring to a case where he accepted upon himself to adjudicate in accordance with Jewish law. He therefore agrees to delay collection for 30 days. The Gemara objects, if he accepted Jewish law upon himself, then let him wait for the orphans until they reach majority before demanding payment of the loan. Gemara again explains, the Bais is dealing with the case where he accepted Jewish law upon himself for this matter to delay collection for 30 days, but he did not accept upon himself for that matter to wait until they reach majority. Rava says, the court does not collect payment from the property of minor orphan due to concern that there might be a receipt, i.e. perhaps the father repaid the loan and received a receipt attesting to his payment and the orphan not unaware of its existence. Rav Huna, son of Rav Yeshua, said to Rav, but are we concerned for the existence of a receipt? Then we know in the Mishnah Ketubah 87a, when a woman who collects the payment of a marriage contract from the property of her husband when not in his presence, a woman collects payment of her marriage contract in the absence of her husband only by means of an oath. For example, if a man divorced his wife and left the city, the wife takes an oath that she has not yet received payment of a marriage contract, and then the court enters the husband's property and collects the payment from his property on her behalf. This is the case only if the husband is located so far from the city that it would be cumbersome to inform him. If he is close enough that he can be informed, the court sends a messenger to do so. If he neglects to come forward, the wife takes an oath and collects the payment. Rambam Sefer Nashim Hilchot Yushat 16:16 Shulchan Aruch Even Ezer 96:10. E.g., if a husband is overseas, he may collect only by means of an oath that she has not yet received payment. And Rabbi Aha Habira says an incident came before Rabbi Yitzchak Nepatha. Rabbi Yitzchak Nepatha was a third generation Amor who lived in Eretz Yisrael. He is synonymous with Rabbi Yitzchak and Rabbi Yitzchak ben Tavlei, and was one of the great students of Rabbi Yochanan. He is cited in the Gemara as engaging in halacha discussions with Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Ami, and Rabbi Abrahu, as well as lecturing in public and issuing halachic rulings. Rabbi Yitzchak was a member of the group of scholars who left Eretz Yisrael for Babylonia, bringing with them various brighthood and customs. He depicted in the Gemara as engaging in discussions with the Babylonian sages of the time, Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Hista, and he delivered public lectures in Babylonia as well. It is known that his daughter married Rav Papi, who was one of the great fourth generation of Babylonian Amoraim. As mentioned in the Gemara, Rabbi Yitzchak also lived in Antioch, a major Jewish population center, where he issued halachic rulings. In Antiochus, where's Antiochus? Antiochia was the most important of the cities built by Carter in honor of his father Antiochus around the year 300 BC. The city was established on the eastern side of the Orontes River, about 25 kilometers from the Mediterranean Sea. Location at the crossroads of major trade routes promoted its development until it became one of the largest cities in the ancient world. Today the city is known as Antakya, southern Turkey near the Syrian border. From the time of its establishment under the Greeks, Antiochia was an important center of Jewish life, and it remained so under Roman and Byzantine rule. Its Jewish inhabitants apparently maintained close ties with the Jewish community in Eretz Yisrael and its sages. He issued a ruling and said, they taught this halacha that she may collect the payment of a marriage contract in her husband's absence only with regard to a wife's marriage contract and for the sake of favour. But a creditor does not have the right to collect the debt that is owed to him in the debtor's absence. And Rabbi said that Rav Nachman said, even a creditor, in the case where a creditor comes to collect the payment in the absence of a debtor and presents a promissory note to the court, if the court can send a messenger to inform the debtor promptly enough that he can appear in court, they should do so. If not, the court instructs the creditor to take an oath, after which he may collect the payment from the debtor's property, either from land or movable property, and the court is not concerned that there may be a receipt in the debtor's possession. The sages ordain this collection so that one should not take the money of another and leave for a country overseas prevent the creditor from collecting payment from his property. His purpose will discourage people from lending money. From his bottom, Malova, 31 161. May collect payment by means of an oath in this absence. I haven't quite finished the daf, but I've run out of time. And I want to wish you a good day and peace, especially in Israel. Okay, bye.